Hey, how's it going, everybody? My name is Sockbot, and today we are talking about this enormous circle. Now, okay, let me zoom in a little bit, and I will show you what I mean. So, this is a dreams glossary created by a wonderful user of Reddit, who I will flash his name on screen and put in the description. Please go up his comment, because this is very useful. So, by dreams glossary, of course, I mean this is every tool, every menu option that we've seen thus far in the streams, and I assume just about everything else here. So, we're going to start with the big part here, which is the game menu, and this has a lot to do with create tools and the like. So we're going to start here. We're going to go all the way to the far end of one circle, which is on the right, with the far end of that line that comes out of the middle thing. And we're going to start with the test here, and this is a new thing to Dreams, which is really great. It allows you to test different parts of your levels, which is super useful. Obviously in Little Big Planet you could do that, but you'd have to rewind, and of course there was always the chance that you'd accidentally delete something you didn't mean to delete, and it was a pain in the butt. So it's great to hear that we do have a play test here, which I'm assuming after you play it will let you reset to right before you played it, so you can just play the different sections really quick without messing anything up. And then we have reset, which I'm assuming resets both the things you modified while playing and obviously then the things that just ran, which is the run part here. And that's not really things that interact with playing. I'm assuming run just means to run things like timelines and the like. So moving down to show hide, this is a very expanded version of the hide option we had in Little Big Planet, which allowed you to hit L2 to hide different elements one by one. So this obviously allows you to hide like every single element of a certain type. So here we got zones, not really sure what that means. Maybe that's just hide a certain zone, so hide every option in a certain zone, not really sure. Then we got rulers, animation paths, lights, wires, thermometer, which is great, of course, to have more screen real estate to create just while you're creating, not really visually anything, but it's nice to have. Then we got fog, x-ray, which I'm assuming is an outline of everything, so you still see everything but can see things behind it. We got connectors and we got electronics, pretty self-explanatory. I apologize if I'm talking particularly fast today. There's just so much to go through and I want to make it quick. So below that we got tools. Here we got tweak, which I'm assuming modifies electronics. That's how you get into the settings of them. We got stretch, which is kind of a different version of the corner editor, it seems like. So stretch makes more sense in 3D than corner editor. So then we got glue, which is just sticking things together. Take a photo. It's here instead of in the player menu, or obviously this is a player menu, but it's in a different part of it. We got delete, clone, and move. Just basic things to move around the objects you've created. Then here we got context menu. Not totally sure what this does. I understand the whole group section here, which is to group different objects together so that you can then save them, or alternatively you can just move them around together or copy them together. We've seen them use that in this stream. It's pretty self-explanatory. So I'm assuming the other things in this context menu kind of allow you to change the context of your objects. If that is too straightforward, it's just basically it allows you to take objects and make sure they're treated how you want when you're moving them around and interacting with them. So moving on to guides, this is an expanded version of the grid snap. So we do still have the grid snap here, which was, I'm assuming is identical to how it was in Little Big Planet, just 3D. And then we got tentacle snap, no idea what that is, not even gonna try. We got ruler, which is great. We don't need to take things in grid mode and count how many blocks apart they were. That's wonderful, we can just see a distance. Then we got here stay upright, not really sure what that means, but it's fine. Some kind of gyroscope? Anyways, and then we got surface snap. So surface snap took me a second to realize what this is. So this is very similar to the grid snap, but it's going to start the base of the grid. So it'll have the square grid or cube grid based on the surface that you reference when you hit surface snap. That's kind of what it sounds like. It may alternatively be just surface snap, meaning anything you try to place using while surface snap is activated will just be snapped to whatever surface you push it against. Kind of unclear which one of those it is, but either way that's super useful in this new 3D fully 3D kind of creation tool. So moving on to animate, again this has to do with animating the different characters and different objects in it. So here we got action recorder, mic on off, playtest, keyframe, timeline, and stop recording. Basically all things you would expect out of an animation tool, though it does not include frame by frame because frame by frame animation is actually in a separate place. So moving around the circle here, it's quite large. We got modes, and this is all of your create tools. So this is the materials and the different like physical things you will be painting the different platforms and objects and characters within your level. So starting with what is it up here? Coat Yeah, coat is just like it would sound for an animal. You got glow, you got tint, and you got hue. This is just the visual properties of your object, has nothing to do with its physical properties per se. And then we got a bigger kind of subcategory called paint here, and that starts with the flex. Flex is what they're called in this one. They're basically the shapes that you can paint with. I won't go over all of them, but obviously I will link to this in the description so you can check it out yourself. We got tools here, which are the different ways of taking those flex or the rest of the kind of things that you're modifying, which I will get to in a second, and how you're going to put those into the world. So you got stamp, which I'm assuming allows you to take a fleck like a star and just stamp one of them, and then stamp one at a time. Then we got this pen. Sorry, I had to drink a glass of water. I am dying here. Pen, I'm assuming, is more like a very thin tool, kind of like any kind of Adobe or even Microsoft Paint, just a very thin tool that doesn't necessarily have a shape, but that you can paint with, per se. We got delete, self-explanatory. Move, self-explanatory. Brush. Brush is how you take one of those flecks and actually paint with that fleck. Then we got clone, and we got ruler. I'm assuming ruler is just a duplicate, but perhaps it's a different kind. Oh, that's a different kind of ruler. I don't know. Sorry. Excuse me. I'm talking very quickly. Okay, so then we got show hide. I'm assuming that has something to do with menu options. You can show hide the menu options to the right of this or something like that. But then we got frame by frame, like I mentioned before. This is where that is. Finishes is the material properties. That's like the physical properties, and that's going to mostly affect, at least from what it seems, how things are reflective. So we got metal, wax, rough, and shiny. I say it's based on how it reflects or reacts to light, because all of those have very different properties when reacting to light. And then of course we have colors and show hide, which again I'm assuming is another show hide, like this part of the menu. Yeah, okay. So moving all the way up, we got components, another subcategory of this menu, and this is all your switches and all of your tech behind the level, basically. So here we got cameras and lighting. Since there's not going to be any base camera, because there's nothing to really follow other than imp, this is going to be an important part. Instead of just focusing on Sackboy all the time, we got to put our own cameras in pretty much no matter what. So you've got the camera there, you've got a camera pointer, the sun and sky, the camera shaker, a light, fog, and wiper option, and then obviously you have grades. I think that's grade? Yeah, grade and effects. Just your normal video editing things, but within this camera. So video editing options when you're in a game, it's like very similar tweaks. So then up here we got used in the scene, which is a version of the favorite part that we had in the Poppet in Little Big Planet 3. May have been earlier, I'm pretty sure it was just 3 though, which is super useful to keep your thermometer down. We got sound options. It looks like the minor parts of that menu aren't really out yet. Then we got other, which has the microchip in it, which is great to see. Don't know what a value slider is, and I don't know why switch is on here, because it seems like we have switches in the next category, which I'll get to in a second. But then we got timeline, which again is very similar to something we've had before, the sequencer. So moving up to sensors and inputs, these are all your basic switches and a couple weird ones. We got tag, wireless receiver, wireless transmitter, trigger zone, inventory sensor, impact sensor, rotation sensor, signal generator, laser scope, angle sensor, controller sensor, grab sensor, and movement sensor. A lot of these are very similar to how they were in previous games, so feel free to look those up on Little Big Planet Wikipedia and or otherwhere on the internet, because it's a pretty crappy Wikipedia. So tag, wireless receiver, wireless transmitter, trigger zone, all pretty obvious. Inventory sensor, I'm assuming is referencing the inventory of the imp itself. Otherwise, it may have a way to sense custom inventories that you create in game. Unclear, pretty sure it's referring to imp. Impact sensors, rotation sensors, signal generators. We've had all of those in previous games in various kind of formations. We got laser scope, no idea what that is, not even gonna try. Angle sensor, controller sensor. Controller sensor, I'm assuming, is the replacement for the controlinator because it's not anywhere else on here. Grab sensor, weird because there's no little Big Planet Sackboys to grab. I'm assuming that imp can grab, or perhaps you can give your characters a way to grab things. Unclear, but we'll see what happens with that. And then movement sensor, I'm assuming that you can reference something and that movement sensor will sense when that thing moves. Pretty self-explanatory again. Connectors, I think, is just they're removing the kind of outputs you would see on like switch outputs. So like when you put down an AND switch, you can plug things into it, but there's no like little kind of silhouette of an output. Instead, you take a connector and click on that switch and then click on what you want to connect it to, and it will supposedly detect how that connection's supposed to go. Not totally sure on that one, but that seems like it would be very useful, so you don't have to kind of zoom in really far to grab that little wire that's sticking out of the end. Okay, then here we got movers and output, basically stuff we've all had before but rearranged. We got the destroyer, the mover, the emitter, the health modifier. Health modifier may kind of be in reference to a pre-existing health bar or something that you can put in your levels, so you don't have to create it yourself. I'm not totally sure on that one. We got rocket rotators and followers, just like we did in Little Big Planet. Follower being the following section of the SACbot. Then we got logic and processing. We got a timer, a signal manipulator, which is kind of the one where you put in an input and it'll output a positive and negative, so you can kind of choose which one you want. Inverter, self-explanatory. Exclusive gate, counter, XOR gate, OR gate, AND gate, and selectors, all things we've seen before. Moving on to gameplay gear, we got the doorway, which I'll talk about in a second. Prize bubbles, just like Little Big Planet. Pickup bubbles, that's the score bubbles. Checkpoints, all those are pretty obvious, but the doorway, I'm assuming, is some kind of level link. Alright, so that's that subcategory. Let's move on to add element. This has to do, like, this is basically your collection segment, as it was in Little Big Planet, but in Dreams. So all of the objects you've collected over time, and obviously it allows you to search for them too, will be found in this section. So you got recent stuff you've seen recently. These are all going to be tabs or something of the sort. You got show filters, which kind of filters the objects you're seeing. And then down here, you of course have my collections. That's all of the objects that you have, sorted into different sort of like subcategories. Then you got my elements, which I'm assuming is everything together. And then of course the Dreamiverse, which is everything that has been created by the community. Okay, so that's almost everything. We just got to do the other half, well, not really half, the other color in the circle, which is the options menu. And this is kind of like the start menu. So you got your basic things here, like when you're in create mode, you can exit your creation. Otherwise, you've got imp editor to change the look of your imp. You got take a photo. You got quick save, which I'm assuming is in reference to either if you're in a story mode or in a create mode game. Not really sure which one that's referencing, but it will save your game regardless of what you're in. Assuming it's available in both, otherwise it'll just be for create mode. Then you got details, which is kind of the options that we had outside, like when you were in the pod, things you could do to your level. So you got top right, which has settings and publish, and then your publish settings. I'm not sure of the difference between save version and save version to my PS4 there, but it's interesting that you can enter version notes, so when you're working on multiple versions of a game, you can keep previous versions in case you mess something up, without just having to copy the whole new level. So then you got your settings, which is just your visual settings, like your brightness of the game, and of course switching to play or create mode. So that is everything. That is an enormous circle. Again, I want to thank the Redditor that made this so very much, and I want to just show this last image on screen really quick, because I think it's really important to see all of this as it will show in game. And just like we expected from all that information, it looks a lot like Little Big Planet, which is really, really good news. I think new players will be happy to know that this kind of setup for everything worked very, very well. And new and old creators will appreciate the fact that they have reorganized things. It'll take a bit to get used to, but it's definitely worth it. It seems like things are in new categories or sorted better so that you can quickly go to everything you need. And also, so many things have been added since Little Big Planet 1, it needed a resort, so it'll take a bit to get used to, but for old creators especially, seeing this just makes me so happy. I see timers, I see AND switches, I see so many familiar things, and a bunch of unfamiliar things too, but it's just like, this is a microchip with a bunch of stuff on it, and I recognize this, I can work with this, and that just, it's so exciting. Alright, I've recorded this a bunch of times, I'm still so very happy to see this image. It's like, oh, it's so nice. Anyways, I don't want to spend too much time fawning over this, but I hope you all are doing very well. I look forward to speaking with you in the next video, and if you have made it this long in this very, very long and detailed video, please definitely go thank that Redditor, because it would not be possible without them. And obviously, do leave a like if you like the video, and subscribe to my channel if you want to. No pressure, just reminding you, you know? Like my mom used to remind me to clean my room, and obviously I like that, so obviously you'll like this, right? No, okay, alright, I'm done. I'm tired and grouchy. Alright, I love you guys, talk to you soon, next video, bye.